Welcome, everybody, to the final edition. It's the finale of USL All Access in the calendar year of our Lord 2023. With Devon Kerr, Nevin McConnell, Mike Watts to walk you through a couple of things that are going on around the league right now, a handful of things. Usually you say what we're thankful for, but the reality is this Thanksgiving week, we're going to stick with the same motif as always. Handful of things we learned this year. We'll talk with Amanda Vandervort, who's the president of USL Super League. They prepare to get in August of 2024 on the field. A lot of things going on off the field, including we're going to call it Vista FC, right? The new Fort Lauderdale team in Super League.
Yeah, sure. That's exactly what the moniker is going to be for what's the tri-code?
The FTL, just like the airport that I spend half my life in. We'll also get to Devon's long-awaited commentary on the all-league team. You excited about that, buddy?
Oh, I was just waiting for the pause to just keep going. The big no-no on SiriusXM is not allowing dead air, and yet I would have let that you-know-what stretch out for a long period of time. Speaking of, Mike, in the year of 2023, in USL Championship, who would our Lord and Savior be? Who would be? Is that McDonough?
Yes.
Is it Papadakis? Who would it be?
No, it's still probably among the Papadoci.
Yeah.
How it goes, I don't know.
So Paul McDonough's Moses.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right. Let's part some C's and get into this, Dev.
Attaboy.
There were some signings here in the last couple of weeks. If you missed, Phoenix won the championship.
Heard about it.
Yeah, I'm sorry that may have escaped some people's grasp. They beat Charleston. Obviously, that means they're behind. We hear this from teams every year. Hey, we made this deep playoff run. We weren't able to have those difficult conversations, or maybe they were had in an abstract form with certain players. Then you have to pick up or choose not to exercise options. Then you go into the free agent market. GMs and presidents are contemplating how they want to move forward, but they aren't going to sign a guy while they're still in their season. So, Dev, El Paso's been done for a minute. All they've done is add Elijah Martin and Bolu Akinyodi, and now they add Joaquin Rivas. Indy signs Danny Barbier. Loudon went out and brought in Drew Skundrich, which makes a lot of sense given that it is Andy Sullivan's husband. So naturally, going to D.C. Made a lot of sense for him. And then they re-signed Zach Ryan to a multi-year deal. Any of those stand out to you as substantial game changers? For me, it's actually Loudon getting Drew Skundrich more than the other two that were made this week.
So I'm a big fan of Bolu Akinyodi and what he can give you both as the six and working onto the center back line. The Zach Ryan one to me is an interesting one because he can score goals. We know it. We saw it at Stanford. We've seen it now in the USL Championship. Locking him up on a multi-year deal, from my viewpoint, sees more of an opportunity with DC United. And I think people at home would probably look and go, oh, well, they signed him to a multi-year deal, so DC doesn't have the option. If DC wanted him so bad, they would have signed him. Fully disagree with that. DC United, because of the new ownership group that came in last year, they've sort of distanced themselves. And while there's still an ownership there, operationally, more of that leans on Ryan Martin. It leans on the front office and Loudon and the ability to continue the development of these players. Because the academy system changed a couple of years ago as well, that's more of an emphasis on these coaches for some of the younger players, and specifically the guys coming right out of college to push them to the next level. I believe in Ryan Martin, and I believe Ryan Martin is the correct one to do that, especially with a Zach Ryan type player who's not just a prototypical 9. Hang around for that, by the way, because in the last segment, I got some things to say about that. But the game is changing, and he's the type of player that can give you so many different looks. So target guy, out of the pocket, deep down in. And so by them signing him, DC has an asset that they don't have to worry about every single day. It's not on their payroll, and yet he's right in their backyard. I think that's an incredible signing.
Yep. There were some players that, clubs will usually come out and say, we've retained these 8 players. We've exercised the options on these 4 players. We're having discussions with contracts with these players. These players will be departing the club. That's a pretty standard boilerplate press release around the championship. The reality is some clubs had a handful of shockers and a handful of things where you thought, okay, it's about time. Louisville came out. They've, as usual, kept the vast majority of their roster. They have not done is keep Kyle Morton, who spent much of the year laid up due to injury. And as we came to find out, they've got a pretty good rookie 38-year-old goalkeeper. No, all right, there he goes. Marshall, hey, what are you going to do?
So messed up, dude.
No, look, I'm just saying. Rasmus Tellefsen is out, but here's the big ones. Tyler Gibson, which probably puts an added emphasis moving forward on Carlos Mogel, who signed a multi-year deal over the past 6 months. And then Oscar Jimenez, which, man, that guy filled a role, and that guy was a good soldier for a long time. He was the left back. Then they went out and they brought in Amadou Dia. Hey, try right back. It wasn't quite working as well. They brought in Manny Perez. Hey, be the swing guy. You know, Oscar, there was a picture floating around him with the 6 trophies, Eastern Conference and USL Championships that he won. Talk about a culture guy and a guy who looks fantastic in fall fashion, walking into the stadium with a cup of coffee.
So let's start with him, because for me, Oscar Jimenez, I don't think this is a stretch by any means, and people could look at it and go, well, he was on a Louisville team, so it's easy for you to say that. To me, I look at Oscar Jimenez and what he provided that team, tenure, quality, coming over from Tulsa, top 50 USL Championship players all time. It's not a stretch for me. Mm-hmm. You talked about the versatility, the roles he had to fulfill. The move itself, leaving Louisville, I'm not going to say it surprises me, because all the new faces that we saw coming into the 2022 season, I asked Danny Cruz straight up, and this wasn't an opinion, it was a fact based upon the players around him. Amadou Dia, Manny Perez, Wes Sharpie involved in that conversation too, if you needed be, right? And it was, and Niall McCabe too, by the way, who can also drop out of the midfield and play on the back line. And it was, who was the one who suffers the most with the added talent? Is it Oscar Jimenez? And he said, yes, I think that's very fair. And last year, he did suffer. He really struggled for playing time. I was beyond impressed to see the turnaround in the 2023 season. This guy wasn't just slotting in, Mike. He was playing at a level that we haven't seen in a couple of years from Oscar Jimenez. Dead ball situations, didn't matter the side of the field, didn't matter the system, the time of the game, starting lineup or not. Every single time he was put into battle action, he came out on top. I thought he had an incredible year. And were it not for his age, getting a little bit older, and that team needing some new blood in there just because of so many different players fighting Father Time, I would imagine they probably would have kept him. But there are other players that have similar characteristics when it comes to the age, the experience and stuff that are a bit more vital to the roster that you're going to see more regularly in the lineup. Oscar Jimenez will get picked up. Will we see the level that we saw in previous years or in this year? I do not know, but he deserves to continue to play because he had an excellent season. My question to you would be is, who out of the Louisville drops surprised you the most?
I mean, look, Tellefsen's numbers, minutes-wise, tailed off at the end of the year, made me wonder, like, you'd say Gibson, but Mogel stepped into that role a lot.
Yeah.
But you're talking about a guy who, for the most part, gives you 3,000 minutes.
And you can't argue Kyle Morton, because Ali Zemla played so well, set the rookie shutout record. I apologize off the top of my head that I don't recall. And you've got Danny Fondes in the wings, which, as Louisville proved in 2022, with an injured Kyle Morton, he's serviceable enough to help you get the job done. You're letting go of money, you're letting go of talent, but you've already gotten that back. So Morton's an easy conversation.
Right. Yeah.
So it goes back to Tellefsen, right?
Yeah, I guess.
I'm surprised by it. I wonder if that's an interior thing. I'm speculating, to be very, very clear. I haven't heard anything. But for someone to be so high on the depth chart for so long, and out of all the mediocre, we'll say, performances that we saw from Louisville at times, he seemed to be the one that received more praise than others, at least in our conversations, right?
Yeah.
And so I was surprised.
And yet by the end of the year, he was a healthy scratch in the postseason.
Yeah, on a regular basis, not even involved in that combo.
Yep.
Yeah,
Tampa Bay obviously has a new coach. With that comes changes. Lucky M. Kosana, you sort of wonder if he's
done.
battling the end here. Yep.
Yeah.
Sebastian Dalgard, who was so significant coming over from Oklahoma City when he first arrived. They're out. Memphis, here's where it's going to hit the fan. It was
Oh
awesome that
yeah.
you kept. It was awesome that you kept all these guys when Ben Pierman left.
And
then the options ran out. And look, at the end of the day, it's up to Stephen Glass to go re-recruit the same way. It was a bare cupboard when Ben got there. Hindman, Pickering, Lapa among those remaining. DaCosta was not on a long-term deal. Okay. Odds are he may move on. He had a great finish to the year. Buckmaster's out. Here's where it hits the fan. Malloy, Kelly, Smith, Kisiedu. Gone.
kiss it goodbye.
There's they would need to splash an exorbitant amount of money to keep that core together relative to what they spend. And I've already heard rumors about Malloy. He could become
those aren't rumors.
Yeah, it's okay.
If you hand someone a Sharpie and he signs somewhere, that's not a rumor.
Until it comes out, buddy, it's still a rumor.
Okay. Got it. I love this game.
Is he going to end up becoming? He might be the highest paid guy in the league. I have zero idea what his number is. Zero. So this is complete conjecture, but like, man, I'd back up the truck.
Well, yeah. You know what's interesting is that anyone that you would like, if you went to a striker and argued the goals, the teams that they're playing on, like no chance.
Chicks dig the long ball, but I don't know.
Yeah,
they dig it more than Aaron Malloy.
Albert Deke was not going to be on X amount. He's not going to be the highest paid player. Just Pittsburgh doesn't operate that way. I have no problem with it, but they don't operate that way. So when you start to, Cal Jennings, not going to happen, right? Like, I'm not saying that he's not capable of it. I'm saying just Danny Trejo could be in that conversation.
Maybe.
Yeah. Phoenix splashes the cash.
A tad. They've been known.
They've been known to dabble.
They So things are going to get weird in Memphis. Look, Stephen Glass, if he wants to go raid the Atlanta cabinet, it obviously has great connections overseas. Has shown that he can develop guys. If I were the first guy cut out of an MLS camp, I'd be looking at him. If I'm going into the offseason trying to get a shot, I'd look at him too. However, ...
Watts, I want to be very, very clear when it comes to the Memphis situation here for a second. You and I are under the impression that this is above Stephen Glass's head.
Yep.
While he's dealing with this, correct?
Absolutely.
We've been talking about it for weeks.
Ben dealt with.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're on the same page because we've been saying it since the middle of the season. It's great what they've done, but
no,
get your house in order. Get your house in order. Get your house in order. They're going to be homeless.
Yeah, he didn't let those 6 guys go by choice. Let's say that.
No.
Before we go to break, couple of things to mention. New Mexico United, huge step forward. They're trying to get a venue, get out of Isotopes Park. The city council has approved a lease agreement for them at the Balloon Fiesta Park. The problem being they can't play home games when the Balloon Fiesta is occurring, which may or may not run during the championship playoffs. But that's a road that we'll worry about when we get there, because if they get 17 games in their own venue, honestly, I'll worry about the rest later. Home openers announced for League One. Those were announced in January last year. We are a full 6 weeks ahead of schedule, believe it or not. First 3 will come March 9th, Greenville, Lexington, and South Georgia, Tormenta. Spokane will make their home debut the following week against Richmond. Last thing before we go to break, Dev. Troy Lesane and Zach Prince. You and I have gotten to know them both very well from their time in New Mexico. Troy goes to Red Bull. Zach followed him this year as an assistant. 1.5 a game was equivalent to 6th in the East. They started at a point per game under Gerhard Struber. He took over at arguably the most divisive moment in the history of that club, restored a lot of faith. They got to the playoffs. They scraped in 14th straight time. I wish them the best because they probably did deserve better. And the reality is it wasn't necessarily a condemnation of those two so much as they got rid of the sporting director too. So they're cleaning house at Red Bull.
So the first part of it is, do I believe he deserved the opportunity to stay and coach? 100%.
Yep.
The numbers speak for itself. The circumstances, absolutely. I witnessed it firsthand. I called their games down the stretch. He and the coaching staff deserve to stay there. I actually view it better overall in this situation, Mike, as opposed to the alternative. Hear me out. USL Championship coach of New Mexico United goes to Red Bull as an assistant. Red Bull head coach fired. Troy Lesesne takes over. Interim tag removed. Brings in Zach Prince. They do the work, and it's done. If they went into next season and fell flat on their faces,
yep,
I don't think they get another shot again whatsoever anywhere in MLS. Maybe as a first or second assistant, definitely not as a head coaching gig or as a team.
Right.
Because he was shown the door inappropriately in a lot of people's eyes, by the way. You can't look back and go, well, he didn't do a good job. Well, he didn't fulfill the role. His sample size right now only says I can get the job done.
Right.
Now the question's going to be is someone willing to go and hire him because of that 6.5 months or 5.5 months? I don't know the answer to that. I would say yes, because everywhere that we've seen, there has been success for the most part. I mean, New Mexico United, they didn't blow anybody out of the water. Certainly the Open Cup run in their inaugural year in 2019 was great. But so one wonders if they're going to give them another shot, specifically Troy Lesesne. I like this version better as opposed to the rollover into 2024 and then the dismissal becomes a permanent tarnish on that CV.
Yep, fair enough. All right, when we come back, Amanda Vandervort is the president of the USL Super League. She's going to join us. We'll tell you all that we learned this year, or at least we'll give you a few bite-sized nuggets, and we'll take a look at the league awards. It's all coming up here on USL All Access. Welcome back to USL All Access on this Tuesday evening, final edition of the show. Miss any part of it, you can catch it tomorrow on the USL YouTube page, which means you're able to see our guest as well as, I'm assuming, hearing now on SiriusXM FC. Amanda Vandervort is the president of the USL Super League, just concluded 2 years on the job as the league plans to launch August 2024. Amanda, as always, I've got nothing going on behind me, and you've got a heck of a decoration. My gosh.
Oh, gosh. Thank you for having me, Mike. And you know what? Your spirit and energy takes up a whole room. So that's all you need.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, obviously there's some news this morning. They announced back in May the 8 initial markets. Turns out that there'll be a 9th that we're talking about from the jump. Charlotte, Dallas, Lexington, Phoenix, Spokane, Tampa Bay, Tucson, and Washington, D.C. 9th this morning, Fort Lauderdale. Try and describe where you guys are at in terms of market building, and I imagine today pretty exciting to add a little Floridian derby to this.
Yeah, we are excited about Fort Lauderdale. The announcement today was a long time coming. We've been working on this club, working with the ownership group on their stadium plans, and really bringing this thing to life. So, we're really excited to get it out there and share it with the world. That we're launching a Super League club in Fort Lauderdale in 2024, along with all of our great clubs. So, big picture as we've been building throughout the year, right? We announced our inaugural clubs back in May and have been building kind of towards this point over the past several months with club brands launching, clubs starting to hire their staff, really putting the pieces together as we round the corner on 23 and into 24, our inaugural year.
Yeah. Does it feel a little more real now that Spokane and Tampa Bay actually have names and crests and colors, and it felt more real to me?
I love that it felt more real to you. No, you said at the beginning of the call or the pod here that I've been there 2 years. It felt real on day one, Mike, the task ahead of me. So no, since October 2021, it has felt very real. But I do love now that we can share the work we've been doing behind the scenes with everyone, and it starts to feel more real to the fans, to the players, and to the women's soccer community, across the country and around the world.
Yeah, when you took over, it felt like 2022, there were stated goals. There was a clear mission. In a lot of ways, it's somewhat philosophical from the outside, right? This is what we're here to accomplish, and we'll be playing soccer eventually. 2023, right? It feels like all that structure that you built behind the scenes in 2022 became more obvious, and then 2024, we'll actually kick a ball. Can you sort of describe how you've built this foundation? Because a lot of it was sort of in quiet to begin, as it always is in a startup, and then it feels like it's exploding now.
Yeah, well, I think it's really important to be intentional about what you're building and how you're building it. So we put out the beginning of the year, this year, we put out our strategy called Step Up, really, and it outlined the youth to pro pathway that we're building, why our pro league will be on the international calendar, the impact of the W League, which is our pre-professional league, as you well know, that supports the development of players into the Super League and other pro leagues around the world. And the evolution of the Super League and who and what we want to be. Really, at the end of the day, what the USL is building is more opportunities for more women in more communities than ever before, and will be the largest connected network of women's soccer teams, in the United States, but really around the world. When you look at all of the levels that we're developing, so I guess you could say it's been building a little bit in the background, but I also feel like we've been really intentional and really forthright in what we're building. And we want people to join us on that journey. This isn't for the USL. This is for all the fans, all the women and the men who love them around the world to be part of the growth and the future of women's soccer.
Yeah, you mentioned the W League. It feels like it's taken leaps and bounds steps over the last couple of years. Not only the level of that league and seeing. I've been watching the NCAA tournament, and it's you really can't get very far without running into players scoring big goals or having big performances that have W League backgrounds. But in terms of that pathway and how you guys plan to be intentional with it, the nature of transfer fees in women's football has exploded in the last, let's call it 24 months. The ability to have a pipeline of talent that's local is doubling in importance to me as I sort of see these young players come into the NWSL. And I imagine as you plan out Super League, there's that pathway is going to be enormous to not only develop talent for the future of the game in this country, which is necessary, but also build the future of this league as well.
Yeah, the W League is really pivotal to us at the USL and how we see the long-term opportunity across the Super League and all the all the platforms and programs and teams we have within. So, just to take you back to as a reminder, we started the W League in 2022 with 44 teams. And then this year we are at 65 teams. We've already announced a Texas division for next year, and we expect to be at 85 teams in the W League by next summer. So, it's of course the player pathway, which we talk so much about. There's a real need and a real hunger for women to participate in a league of this caliber and of this quality from May to July in the summer months. But there's also a hunger by the fans and by the communities for women's soccer. You see, so many of our teams were at capacity every game this summer, from Oakland to Detroit to Minnesota. And Indy 11, who won the W League Championship this year, had the highest attendance women's soccer game in the history of that state, the W League final. They did a doubleheader with their championship team, and it was on fire. The fans were incredible. The supporters group, it was awesome. And so I think that's just a demonstration of this need and this hunger that we have for more women's soccer. And as we launch the Super League now, you look at the opportunity gap that exists, right? Today, there's 12 professional women's teams in this country that are doing great. And we're really, really proud of the progress that's happened, in professional soccer in the United States. But there's a gap. There's over 100 men's professional teams in the United States. So that delta is just yearning for more opportunity. And that's really what the Super League will provide and will address, both fans and players and kind of all of us who love the game.
Yeah, and as a personal aside, I hear comments about the nature of spreading talent and expansion at both the Super League coming in and the NWSL. Just as a personal aside, I think it's worth noting, no one's saying English football is struggling to find talent, and they've got how many divisions on the men's side. No one's saying that we're struggling to find talent in the U.S. to play men's soccer, and they've got 30 MLS teams and another 24 USL Championship teams. At some point, we just need to open the door and allow people through. That in mind, is how exciting was going down under and Australia and New Zealand and records smashed and more money for TV and more money for players and more corporate sponsorship. And everyone said this World Cup was sort of that breaking point, where they could just blow through the ceiling. It happened, right?
Yeah, it did. It was amazing. I mean, I was there. I was in New Zealand. I was in Australia. I was very fortunate to have the luxury of seeing my fourth Women's World Cup final in a row. So
Wow.
I've been eyewitness to that growth over the years, and from, um, you know, seeing the United States lose to Japan in 2011 to coming back in 2015 in Canada, 2019 France, see the energy starting to build across that country to where it was in Australia and New Zealand was just off the charts. I mean, stadiums were packed. Like you said, broadcasters were clamoring for the content. And the players, I think the players had the best experience that they've had over time because there was investment made in their conditions, in their travel, in actually having a base camp, in being able to perform at the elite level. And I think that when we invest in the players and their environments for training and playing, I think then you see the game will improve overall. But it's kind of a chicken or the egg sometimes, right? You've got to invest in the players for them to increase their performance, or have the opportunity to do so and play at the elite level and create the opportunity in the space for them too. And I think a lot of that comes from the investment that FIFA has made, the work that the players themselves advocated for through FIFPro and the Global Players Union in the years leading up to that World Cup. And the fans really are just, the more access fans have to see the game, it works. It transcends. It means fans want more. They go, they tune in, they turn up, and they turn on the television.
Love it. That is Amanda Vandervort, president of the USL Super League, set to launch August 2024. Speaking of sort of the national team situation, I saw your statement when Emma Hayes was hired. You're talking about a manager that revolutionized things in English club football, obviously has experience coaching here in the U.S. at the club level, and said that she always wanted that chance to coach the senior national team of one of the giant countries, and indeed gets the chance now. Saw the statement. Now that you've had a little time to contemplate it, what goes through your mind when you think about Emma Hayes taking over the U.S. national team?
I mean, I'm excited for Emma. I've known Emma for 20 odd years. When she came to the United States and was coaching in her early days with the Long Island Lady Riders, W League Coach of the Year in 2002. So I've been, I think, fortunate to witness her path, in her life and her career. And she has been, as she said, I mean, she's been really excited about, throughout her career, about the opportunity to coach the U.S. women's national team. So to see it happening for her, I'm just excited for her and really, really proud. And then looking at the U.S. women's national team and the future of how and what we can become as the United States of America on a global stage. I think it's just such an exciting period of time for us, such an interesting era for us to enter as a country, as a federation. And we think, we need to think about all of the different pieces of American soccer and how they support our U.S. women's national team to be, leaders on the global stage once again. And I think the Super League has a core role in that, making sure that we're supporting the federation and developing those players and developing that talent. And collaborating across the landscape so that we're all, we're all aligned on that mission that we want to win the next Women's World Cup. We want to win the Olympics, and then we want to win the next World Cup. And that's exactly where the United States is heading.
Yep. Fingers crossed we're on our way this coming summer in Paris. Let's close with this. Before we even get there, you've got a lot to handle. What's on your desk right now? What's sort of the next steps that you're thinking about taking once we enter 2024 when the Super League itself is intended to kick off?
Yeah, well, we've just been announcing some of our brands. So you saw Spokane Zephyr FC that we announced. We launched the Tampa Bay Sun FC brand just in the last couple of weeks. Carolina has been in market with a fan vote for their brand name. So we're working on that. Hopefully we see that announcement soon. I think you're going to start to see a lot of hires, coaching hires, sporting staff, presidents of clubs will start to come to life. And, Mike, if you think it feels real now, once we start to get all these puzzle pieces in place, it's just going to take on an incredible life, which I'm so excited about. So that's the next coming months, and then as we head into the new year, it's the road to kick, right? Like, what are all the elements that go into that, from looking back from your inaugural weekend, which we're so excited to be planning what that first kick looks like, and back through the summer with the Olympics and starting to sign players, before that. So a little weird that I went in reverse chronological order, but that's how my head works, because I think there's a deadline on my mind, right? And it's all the pieces that are going to line up to get us there. So I'm excited, and I'm thankful for this opportunity to share it with you, Mike, and with everyone listening, because the Super League is it's exciting, and I'm honored to be leading this. But it's a community of people that are all involved and really all in it for the future of women's soccer and the betterment of the game.
Amanda, what's on your Thanksgiving table on Thursday?
Stuffing is on my table. What else? My neighbor is coming over with some sort of apple squash dish that he's incredibly excited about, and we're going to pick some lemons from the backyard. So I'm thankful. The thing I'm most thankful for, though, is my family and friends that I'll be with.
Love it. By the way, talking about the lemon grove in your backyard, just to remind me it's cold here and it's not there. Amanda, appreciate the time, and there's going to be a rocket strapped to your back for the next 9 months. So I look forward to when we get together again once the show comes back to life in March, and by then I imagine things are going to be just zooming for you. Congratulations on all the success, and enjoy the holidays.
Well, you too, Mike. Thank you.
That's Amanda Vandervort. Missed any part of it? SiriusXM app. Catch up with it later tonight, or you can wait and catch on the USL YouTube page tomorrow. Back with Dev to talk USL Awards on the other side of the break here on All Access. Back from walking the cat, Devon Kerr joins the show here on USL All Access. You would have needed to unmute your mic to let the cat speak, but that's fine.
Meow.
Yeah, the problem is now this is video. All right, let's do the thing. Welcome back to All Access, final edition of the year with Devon and Emmett at the controls, who remains a ghost to us all. Mike, let's chat major awards, because we've been stringing you along on this for weeks now. Coach of the year is out, Bob Lilly. 60% of the vote, 20% to Pierman, 9% to Mark Briggs. There are 7 coaches that earned a nomination of sorts. Dev, the city of Pittsburgh even named it Coach Bob Lilly Day a couple days ago. Also Pittsburgh Riverhounds Day. Shout out to Teresa Kale Smith out here grabbing the votes of proud Riverhounds fans. Good for Bob, man.
I'm trying to figure out how much I celebrate it, because until they put him in the National Soccer Hall of Fame, I'm not really sure what else I can say to people.
That's so true.
Right?
He could also be in the Canadian one, too. Let's not forget about his time.
Oh, Canada, he can.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Rob Vincent will join him on his staff, by the way, this coming year.
Rob Vincent, legend, the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, College of Charleston guy, Chris Grassi disciple. Chris Grassi, by the way, Marshall, national champs, #1 team in the nation, trying to run it back a couple of years later. Coaching tree, great for Vincent. Bob Lilly, deserved. I would not have been upset or surprised if they gave it to Ben Pierman.
Yep.
The argument there, obviously regular season, I get it. I think people have a real good understanding of kind of the 50-50 relationship between Ben Pierman and Lee Cohen. Not saying that Ben wouldn't have had success without Lee. And I'm not saying that team would have been successful in the Charleston Battery without Ben, and it was only Lee. But the two of them together definitely pushed themselves to another plateau. Finishing third didn't help. Wouldn't necessarily say it hurt, but I wouldn't have been disappointed. But Bob Lilly, once again, regular season, incredible Players' Shield, #1 overall seed. Just left wanting a bit more come postseason time. That seems to become a mantra now. I'd like to get rid of that next year, Bob.
Yep. Player of the year, we mentioned it last week, obviously announced it during the championship final. 12 got their names scribbled in. Neither of us were among that group. Albert Dequa, again, just shy of 60% of the vote. Trejo, Cicerone, Jennings, all getting between 7 and 11%. There was a tie between Russell and Cal. That's why there were 4 finalists for the award. Anything to add there? I mean, we've touched it.
No.
Yeah.
This wasn't a year, and it's going to contradict something I'm going to say in the last segment, but this wasn't a year where you had the double in play. You didn't have the 2-in players. You didn't have stuff like that. It was basically a goal scorer, and then everybody else was pretty good at what they were doing. It's hard to argue the Golden Boot this year. Other years I've done it. This year, I agree with it.
Defender of the year goes to Arturo Ordonez. Dev, you're a pronounced hater of Arturo. We'll get to that in a second. I'll say this. Donovan, 14%, Kerr, 40%. Everyone talks about, hey, can big three provide you in the NBA and MVP? Because they might split the votes among each other, and then all of a sudden someone else comes out on top. That's actually very possible. Ordonez was the lowest percentage one of votes to win a major award this year. And if Gerb picked up a couple votes off Donovan, maybe we're having a different discussion. It's irrelevant. Yeah. Arturo's the guy. Dev, you've been on his train since Pitt.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand. Someone reached out to me at I Hate Your Club. Sorry, I had to out you, saying that while I'm chirping, I really hope you put a little bit more respect on Arturo Ordonez while discussing the All-League team next week. Get out of your own way, chirp about yourself, and you know what off. Because since Pitt, since his first year, this guy's been incredible. What Bob has asked him to do, and even more so this year, the aggression coming off the back line started to mimic what we saw at Pitt. They let him carry the ball more. He was with Joey Farrell centrally. They pushed him out to the right. He could still fall back to that main focal point, but he did everything for them. I'm not surprised by this. I do think that as defender of the year, this reminded me of the vote seemed a bit closer than previous years. Now, points wise, maybe we could argue that. I don't remember the percentages 2 years ago because last year there wasn't a question that it was Mitchell Tainer or bust. But Arturo Ordonez is a very good defender who gives you everything. It's one-on-one, it's physical, it's in the air, 3-back, 4-back, 5-back. Throw his butt in goal if you want to. He's going to figure out a way to get it done, although I'm sure that Jamali Waite would have something wrong with that. Well-deserved. I'll save the rest for later. Keep going.
All right. Young Player of the Year, Fidel Barajas, Rita Zuhir, and Rocco Rios Novo came in under 10% each. Barajas nearly 60%. Just scored for Mexico's under-17s to get them into the knockout stage at the under-17 World Cup in Indonesia. Fidel's about to go for a solid 7-figure sum.
100%. And the question is, to me, is going to be not where, but when. I'm envisioning I could see him in Holland. I could see him in the Netherlands. That's a dad joke, by the way. It's the same place.
Yeah. If you look at like Chucky Lozano, went over and hit that very well. If you're thinking about Mexican internationals that made that jump.
Yeah, 100%. Fits right in. The relationships are there. And also, especially at his age, being so young, technique established, not done though. This is something where they're still molding players, if you will, and certainly at his age, he'll be perfect to fit right into that spot. And I don't think it's a question as to whether or not he was going to win this award. My question is probably going to be when we get to the All-League team, whether or not he should have been on the first team because he made the second.
All right, let's boogie through that. Goalkeeper of the year is Danny Vitiello, just signed a multi-year deal. Paul Blanchette and Nathan Steinwasser, surprisingly inching around a quarter apiece. All right, All-League teams, Dev. First team, 9 players got their first ever selection to the All-League team. Malloy and Hernandez each got their second. Up front, Dequa, Jennings, Trejo. Davila of RGV gets a first-team nod. Aaron Malloy, Hernandez, and Charlie Dennis in midfield. Donovan, Gurr, and Ordonez in a very attack-minded back line. And Danny Vitiello is the goalkeeper. Thoughts? You've got uno minuto.
Got it. So first part is please stop doing this based upon what formation you're going to do. Please understand that you have to figure out a way to put something together that actually makes sense. Literally get your head out of your derriere because the back line cannot read Jack Kerr as the center back of a 3. It's that simple. Honestly, like Jack Kerr, one of my favorite players in USL. If I was starting a team, I would sign him tomorrow. He is not a center back. It's not even freaking close. And I don't understand what the hell we're doing. Can we say hell?
Okay.
I don't know
Anything else?
Say that. I'm saying I think the formation is ridiculous. I don't think Taylor Davila believes in there, belongs in there. I'm not saying that he's bad, but you're going to take the young player of the year and a guy who is right there atop assists in the league, and you're not going to put Fidel Barajas on there. I'm not saying that they lost the final because of him, but they certainly didn't win it. And he could have been a massive piece to that. I don't get why. It's very difficult as I'm looking at it. I don't have an issue with any other player specifically other than Taylor Davila. Going past that, it's difficult. I might argue for Enzo Martinez, by the way.
Yeah.
Enzo Martinez, for the numbers that he put up, I think it was 10 and 8, if I'm not mistaken, 10 goals, 8 assists. Father time does not exist, as it didn't with Jorge Herrera. Funny how the Charlotte Independence relationship is there. Yeah. And what he did for the team, I don't think that team sniffs anything of what they were capable of this year, if not for Enzo Martinez. Get the formation right.
Yeah, all right. All right. Second team, kind of the all-name team a little bit as well. Enzo's 4th appearance on an all-league team. Canardo gets his 7th all-league selection. Sean Tosh gets his 4th. Blanchette in goal, Dees Pay, and Tainter and Tosh, your back 3. I mean, your 3 defenders. Barajas, Forbes, Cam Lindley, and Enzo. Your front line, Milan Olaski en route to Denmark. Tani Oluwaseyi in his debut season on loan from Minnesota, and Russell Cicerone. Now you got like half a minute.
Yeah, it's fine. If the level of consistency was higher from almost all of those players, they're close to being League One players, but it wasn't, and they aren't. Again, Enzo Martinez for sure could have stepped into the first team. You could have a conversation, to be fair, as well. You could have a conversation for Canardo Forbes. To me, he disappeared out of too many games this year.
Yep.
I found him floating in and out of a system, regardless of what Bob was putting on the field, that didn't see him exploit teams the way that he used to. And yet still he went double-digit in assists. Shocking.
Yep. He had some games he utterly dominated, and somewhere he just sort of floated. All right, when we come back, Devon and I tell you the lessons we learned and also favorite Thanksgiving item on the table. That's coming up here on All Access. This is it. This is the finale. We are closing out All Access for the year. We're going to lock it up. We're going to go into a log cabin, do nothing. Dev, what are you doing?
I just wanted you to please pay attention to the shirt I was wearing.
It's Dollar Beer Night.
Yeah. Do you think if I sent the shirt back to Phoenix Rising for the Dollar Beer Night champion shirt that they would put a star above it? Or do I have to get one of my children to grab a Sharpie and do it themselves? I mean, honestly, guys, what are we doing here? Is this a center for ants?
Yeah, no, it's not. The shirt's plenty big enough. Dev, before we get there, favorite thing you put on your Thanksgiving table is?
It's actually not a popular thing. It's a relish tray. That's more of a sentimental thing.
Okay, well, I'm not going to bag on you then.
I like to put the olives on my fingers.
Okay, the answer is stuffing and underrated ingredient, water chestnuts.
Water chestnuts, agreed. I have a problem with Thanksgiving. Can I just say something really quick?
Yeah, I mean, really quick, sure.
Explain to me why we wait a whole year to all get together and have this magical feast to eat food that you wouldn't eat all year long, for the most part. Now, I get it. Mac and cheese, twice baked potatoes. I'm here for it. Certainly, Mike is ordering an extra round of coleslaw, industrial size. But I'm not going to a steakhouse and ordering turkey. It's barely ordered at a smokehouse. Why are we getting stuffing involved in this conversation? Nobody cares about the cranberry relish. I don't care if I'm vilified for this. I'm right. Moving on.
All right. Dev, we always finish with what we learned this show. Let's chat about what we learned this year. I'll start 100-1 odds for Charleston coming into the year. Proof that there's a number of ways to win. Recent history is kind of irrelevant in this league. You can turn the whole thing around in 1 year. And primarily, it's the management that turns your fortunes. I had maybe my favorite moment of the final was the day before. Lee Cohen trying to lock the building up. We started chatting about roster building and how you go about putting the right guys in the room. I'm enthralled by, chat about culture that isn't coach speak. There's one thing I learned. It can all happen like that.
Funny how we went from getting thrown out of the building to getting a breakdown of the archetype that is Lee Cohen and how he built the damn thing, right?
Sure.
With Ben Pierman, of course, and Rob Salvatore. I'm with you. My first one is actually going to go hand in hand with the second, so I'll go back to back here. To me, the league felt dominated by players outside of the 9 spot, specifically the 9. I'm not talking about strikers. I'm talking about the 9. And so being dominated by guys like a Fidel Barajas, right? Like a Jorge Hernandez, who had such a good year. Keko for Sacramento, Aaron Malloy, not even a question. The steadiness of Cam Lilly. I talked about Enzo Martinez. To me, that level of consistency that you got within the midfield and guys just above it that may have happened to find themselves on a front line at times, depending on the system. It felt more aggressive in nature, and they seemed like the more dangerous players, which leads me to my next spot. We're not a league that has a ton of number 9s anymore.
No.
And I don't mean that negatively towards some of these strikers out there, but if you just start Dikwa, that's a 9. He is an out-and-out number 9, and I get it. And he's going to run through you, over you, around you, beat you in the air, be physical. He does it all. Danny Trejo is not that way. Milan Oloski is not that way. Russell Cicerone is not that way, right? Arteaga is physical and stuff like that, but he's got to play off the central spots to win. So I was kind of thinking about this in general going into the final, and then having a couple of discussions with coaches and GMs from around the league talking to me about who I liked at the 9 spot and stuff. I'm like, you got to go somewhere else and find someone. Mm-hmm. This is the league is taking a different turn.
Dev, to follow up on that, I learned that the stylistic diversity of this league, and it used to be the venue diversity, and to me, the stylistic diversity is so stratified now. That should be its on-field hallmark. If you don't have a number 9, there's a number of ways to attack that, and we saw that this year. If you do, there's a number of ways to feed into that. When we did matches this year, the styles of teams were so drastically different. It's not homogenized anymore. And it used to be beat the hell out of each other, and the East had a defined side and the West had a defined side. And that game, I think, is over. I think it's actually become one giant stylistic diversity disaster in the best possible way.
Mike, it's almost like we're doing a game together right now on air and had a production meeting before as to what we wanted to talk about, because my point will play right off of yours, and it's the quality of the league. I literally wrote, there's no layups anymore. You can't just step in and find a way to go and get a result the way that you know how to do things. You have to evolve. You have to change. That could be within the match, or it could be from game to game, or a window that finds a way to find you success as well. The quality of this league has taken a massive step. And while I think that the ceiling has risen a little bit slower, the basement has come drastically up. Yep. You're not deep down in the doldrums anymore, trying to find a way to get a consistent 11. You can run 16 to 18 players deep and not miss a beat. Maybe the profile tweaks a little bit, but the overall quality of the USL Championship has taken a massive step in play.
This should sound familiar. Everybody feels the squeeze of a more competitive league. That's what I wrote. Owners, managers, players, everyone echoes it, so it must be true. It's cliche, but there's something to it. That in mind, managers need a little more rope. It's going to be tighter late into years. This year, the entire West was still alive with a week or two to go, except for Las Vegas. Depth. If you get to the summer and you're down to 16 healthy players, you're going to impale yourself by the end of the season. So Trevor James told me we got the depth thing wrong. That's something that this offseason I'm thinking about a lot more.
Watts, what do we got? One more each?
Yep.
Awesome. I'm going to go with, I have two, and that's hard to separate.
Rip it quick.
I want. Awesome. Great. The kids are going to be all right. And the reason I say that is, although there's a long way to go, I had a very good conversation with Paul McDonough at the final. And I know people can talk about his past. People could say, oh, there were wrongdoings and stuff. First of all, go read the article in The Athletic. He admits the wrongdoings. He admits being involved. People make mistakes. The day that you sit back in your life and think that everybody has to be perfect, you will spend your life by yourself. Trust me, I've tried to do that. I liked his vision. I liked the conversations we had, the direction of the league, things that needed to happen compared to things that he wanted to happen. And they can go hand in hand, but they can be very separate. I think it's got a great vision with Paul McDonough at the helm of this. My second one would be Phoenix Rising deserved this. We talked about him the entirety of the time. We said that it wasn't expected, but it's not surprising. I have a massive amount of respect for Juan Guerra and Bobby Dooley and everything that they've built out there. It's been a long time coming. Sit down for the crown because they deserved it, and their fans are about to get a lot more obnoxious.
Last two for me here. In a year dominated by flight delays, I learned there is, in fact, only one way to travel, and it is the most reliable airline of 2022, Delta Airlines. Did not miss a single game. Here's the other thing. I knew this. I think a lot of other people learned this. Devon should be calling the World Cup in 2026. And anyone who didn't know that before, based off his work with Apple this year and his continued work with the championship, hopefully got a heavy and unique dose of understanding why this dude is different. Emmett, thank you, man in the sky. What a hell of a year you've put together, huh? Dev, as always, who knows? 2 more years. Who knows, right?
Love you, brother. Thank you for the kind words. And I promise you, eventually, the 10% will be in the mail.
Yeah, that's right. For Devon, Emmett, Mike, we'll talk to you in the spring. Have a great thaw, everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving. Happy holidays. This has been USL All Access. So long for now.